What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. Today I want to talk to you about a very important topic that I've been kind of putting off for a while and collecting evidence and data so that I could make my case. And I think it's funny that every day when I turn on the news, especially the mainstream news, they're pushing this agenda more and more and more, just blatantly out in your face. It's not even heavily researched anymore. They're just doing these little studies and these things and saying it's climate change. Everything is climate change. That's why they have to do all this stuff, don't you know? I mean, that's the reason they have to ban your gas stoves. That's the reason they have to ban your air conditioning, your water heater, your gas furnace, on and on and on, your ceiling fan, because they don't want you to be cool and be acting like a first world nation, citizen. They want you to be a third world nation citizen. That's what they want. They want you enslaved. They want to steal your wealth away from you right before your very eyes, and they want to use this boogeyman called climate change that they created way back in the day. Some trace it back to the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and people like that, and I don't want to go into all that, but I've got over 50 years of examples of how the scientists and the media have been lying out their ass about climate change, and especially man-made caused global warming and stuff like that. Here recently, we've had the Canadian wildfires going off all summer long, and for whatever reason, we can't put these things out anymore. We can't figure out how to fight fires anymore, and they're blaming climate change, of course. We've had, of course, most recently, the Hawaiian fires out there in Maui that just devastated the entire Lahaina area and burned cities and burned boats out in the water. It's just very bizarre stuff going on related to those Hawaii wildfires. And of course, now they're putting up barricades so that the media and citizen journalists can't even report on what their findings were. So they're trying to cover something up. What that is, laser space weapons, Chinese space weapons, I don't know. United States space weapons. Because right now, the person that's in charge is pushing heavily for more and more control taken away from you and put into the hands of the elites, the bureaucrats, the EPA, all these organizations that are taking your liberty away from you. And it's all being done in the name of climate change to save you from yourself because you don't know any better, right? So they've been pushing this wildfire one very heavily, and I find it very, very interesting that in where was that, Spain? I don't remember where it was, but somewhere over in Europe, they busted like 80 some odd arsonists that were eco-terrorists that were going around trying to start fires, but they busted these guys. Is that what happened in Hawaii? Is that what's going on in Canada? I wouldn't put it past them. We've seen this in the past. These eco-terrorists do all sorts of things. Starting fires is one of their favorite things to do. And so I wanted to start off here with this most recent headline that I just came across within the last couple of days. A scientist says he left out the full truth to get climate change wildfire study published in journal. So he left out a whole bunch of stuff like what causes these wildfires and stuff. He's trying to blame climate change. Well, it wasn't convenient for him to mention the fact that these unmanaged forests with all sorts of debris that are being left untended are basically tinder pots, tinder boxes that are any spark, any lightning bolt, anything, somebody flips a cigarette butt out the window or an eco-terrorist comes along at the right time and sets everything on fire, right? And I also find it very interesting that all of a sudden, within the last couple of years, I think it has been, Bill Gates specifically has been calling for a reduction in trees because trees actually, according to them, hurt the environment. So they're wanting to deforest the world and depopulate the world at the same time. And, farms are bad, meat's bad, everything's bad, right? Because of climate change. Trucking's bad, every industry, oil's bad, every industry that is the backbone and built our economy, our culture, our country is bad in the eyes of these so-called scientists. So my endeavor, my attempt here today is to try to convince you, if you're not already convinced, that all of this crap is a lie. These people always claim that they have the solution, that just if you just give them power, if you just let them take control of this, that, or the other aspect of your life, your thermostat, your travel and stuff like that. I didn't even mention that. In several states right now, they're running pilot programs designed to see what it would be like to tax people by the mile. Instead, so it'd be like a turnpike everywhere you go, a toll road everywhere you go, whether that's a city street or whatever. And they claim it's because of EVs coming in on the market and they're not paying their fair share of gas tax. So now they have to tax people some other way, electronically, by how far they travel, meaning they will be tracking your every movement in your vehicle. I mean, are you comfortable with that? Did you sign up for that deal? I was telling my buddy a day or two ago, I was like, look, man, I just realized a couple of days ago, I'm not ever going to be able to buy a car that was manufactured after like the year 2000 for sure. Because many of them have either kill switches embedded into the circuitry, or at very least, they have the ability to be tracked. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not wanting to be tracked. And, you might argue, well, you're being tracked anyway by your cell phone. Yeah, but you could leave that at home, or you could turn it off or whatever. Even that may not even be enough these days. So I want to get into a lot of these predictions that have come out over the last 50 years. And we'll talk at the end about were any of them true? Has one single prediction that they made in the last 50 years come true? Let's find out. Number one, 1967, they said dire famines were forecasted by 1975. I don't believe any dire famines happened, at least here in the United States. There may have been famines around the world, but that always is the case. Number two, 1969, everyone will disappear in a cloud of blue steam by 1989. So I don't remember that happening. I mean, I'm still here. I don't remember seeing the blue steam. I was alive in 1989, so I don't remember seeing any of that, but it sounds kind of far out there, but that's what they thought in 1969. That was the science you were supposed to trust at that day, during that time. 1970, Ice Age by 2000, they said. And I remember seeing the specials on PBS with Spock, Leonard Nimoy, whatever his name is, doing these specials and scaring people into thinking it was going to be an ice age coming. 1970, another prediction. America subject to water rationing by 1974 and food rationing by 1980. So, I mean, that didn't happen. 1971, they predicted a new ice age to be coming by 2020 or 2030. Well, 2020's passed and that hasn't happened yet. In fact, they're saying it's getting hotter and hotter. In 1974, another ice age. 1974, space satellites show new ice age coming fast. 1974, ozone depletion, a great peril to life, data and a graph. So I remember that one very, very vividly throughout the 80s and stuff. They would always talk about how the ozone was going to, it was, oh God, the ozone's disappearing. We got to ban all these things. We got to ban R12 refrigerant, the stuff that works the best in your automobile air conditioning system. We got to ban that because it's knocking holes in the ozone. Oh God, we got to ban everything, hairspray, Aquanet, all the stuff that the girls used back in the 80s where they poof their hair up really high in the front. We got to ban all that because it was knocking holes in the ozone. And they scared-mongered us that with that deal for decades. And I don't know, I haven't heard anything about it in a while, so I guess the ozone's just fine now. Must have been all those controls they put on us that fixed it or something. Either that or they were exaggerating to begin with and they didn't know what the hell they were talking about, which is mostly what's going on. So do you still trust the science? We're just barely getting into this. 1976, scientific consensus, planet cooling, famines imminent. 1980, acid rain kills life in lakes. So I remember that one as well. Acid rain, oh God, they ran several 60-minute specials and all this, how acid rain was going to kill all life on Earth. And it was some scary sounding shit. It was effective. They used that to control people. Is acid rain a problem? I mean, did it kill all the fish? No, it didn't. It was a lie. 1978, no end in sight for 30-year cooling trend. You can't make this stuff up. These were things that scientists of the day were saying, guys. And so I'm telling you all these so that whenever you hear a scientist that says, trust the science, I am the science, this is what it means. I mean, there was a time in medical history where the science said to put leeches all over your body. That was the right thing to do. But we don't do that anymore because it wasn't the right thing to do, as it turned out. Oh, God, these people are, I mean, I can't believe how dumb they are, to be honest with you. And how dumb the sheeple are that fall for this crap. That's what's even worse. It would be, you know, maybe an anomaly if one or two people in Congress were saying this kind of crazy shit. But that ain't what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the hordes of blue-haired weirdos that follow this stuff because it's been driven into their head throughout the public education system. Perfect little commies, designed to destroy the United States based on a whole bunch of lies. Let's continue on. 1988, the Maldive Islands will be underwater by 2018. Hint, they're not. Next up here, 1989, rising sea levels will obliterate nations if nothing is done by 2000. So, 2000 came and went and we didn't get obliterated. So I don't know who calls these people out, but apparently it's nobody. The science never goes back and says, oh yeah, by the way, we missed it. We missed the mark on that one. They just brush it under the rug and never mention it again. That's what the media does. In 1989, they predicted New York City's West Side Highway will be underwater by 2019. And of course it's not. So in the year 2000, they predicted that children of the future wouldn't know what snow is. In 2002, they predicted famine in 10 years if we don't give up eating fish, meat, and dairy. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? That's one of the UN's main tenets, is to get the United States and the rest of the first world countries to give up eating meat and fish and dairy, and especially beef, because cows fart, and oh my God, it's killing the ozone, killing the environment, and don't you know, you're destroying the earth, Mother Gaia. It really is like a religion, guys. The way these people follow this stuff so blindly, especially while it's going on, and then it just fades away and they forget about it, and then they focus on the next new big thing that's in the media currently, right? So they just forget about all this stuff. They don't want to talk about this because this proves they've been lying all along. So in 2004, Britain will be Siberia by 2024. In 2008, they predicted the Arctic will be ice-free by 2018. In 2008, climate genius Al Gore predicts ice-free Arctic by 2013. In 2009, climate genius Prince Charles says we will have 96 months to save the world. That came and went, didn't happen. We didn't die. These people... 2009, UK Prime Minister says 50 days to save the planet from catastrophe. Again, came and went, nothing happened. So I guess they got a little egg on their face. But somehow they don't get egg on their face because the media never calls them out on it. 2013, they said the Arctic will be ice-free by 2015. That didn't happen. 2014, only 500 days before climate chaos. 1968, overpopulation will spread worldwide. And that's another UN tenet. They want to control population. 1970, the world will use up all of its natural resources. 1966, they predicted oil will be gone in 10 years, peak oil. 1972, oil depleted in 20 years. I don't remember the headline, but I posted an article on one of my videos a couple of videos back, and it was talking about how scientists are baffled. They don't understand what's happening, but the oil reserves in the ground are actually refilling. They can't explain it. I don't know. Maybe it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be. In 2002, they predicted peak oil in 2010. In 2006, they predicted super hurricanes because of man-made global warming. In 2005, Manhattan would be underwater by 2015. In 1970, urban citizens will require gas masks by 1985. So, you can just see, as we go on and on here, we're getting close to the end. You can just see every one of these things has been a flat-out lie. And it's all been glommed onto by the media and perpetuated by the media to promote the ability of the elites to control the plebes. That's basically the best way I can describe it. 1970, they claimed nitrogen buildup will make all land unusable. That's not the case. So who called this guy out that said this? Who was the person that started this theory to begin with? And how did it perpetuate throughout the media? And when do we call these people out and say, hey, you lied about this, or at very least you promoted a mistruth? 1970, they predicted Decaying pollution will kill all the fish. Didn't happen. 1970, killer bees will kill everybody, and everything. Killer bees was a big thing. Remember at the beginning of COVID, it was the murder hornets that were going to get us all, right? So there's just always these things that are always linked to climate change in some way in their minds. Not really in reality, but these people are deniers of reality. 1969, worldwide plague, overwhelming pollution, ecological catastrophe, virtual collapse of UK by the end of the 20th century. Didn't happen. 1972, pending depletion and shortages of gold, tin, oil, natural gas, copper, and aluminum. In 1970, the oceans will be dead in a decade, U.S. water rationing by 1974, food rationing by 1980. I mean, they missed the mark big time on that one. In 1988, world's leading climate expert predicts lower Manhattan underwater by 2018. And yet, people like Obama, Oprah, celebrities like The Rock, other people are buying oceanfront property, and they don't seem too worried about all this rising seawater. Unbelievable. 2005, 50 million climate refugees in the year or by the year 2020. So that's a big one. Climate refugees. Let's get into this one for just a second. Biden has been saying all along that these people coming up from South America and all over the world through our southern border are basically climate refugees, and they should be granted refugee status, right? That's what has turned on the magnet. And if we wanted to turn it off, all we'd have to do is turn that crap off. Say, no, you're not refugees. You're not climate refugees. If anything, an argument could be made that they are economic refugees, but it's because of the COVID lockdown policies. That's why. I mean, see, the United States, because we have a Republican form of government, meaning that the states have their own rights, they were able to open up at different intervals, So the more blue states, they stayed closed longer. They carried out the mask mandates, all that stuff, a lot longer than a lot more of the red states. So it was divided. And then eventually it wore off all around the country and people stopped wearing the masks and all that. Of course, they're trying to get us to rehash that whole deal, and I don't think very many people in America are going to fall for it. But the problem is, in a place where you don't have as much freedom, like, Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil, anywhere you can think of in South America or other parts of the world where they don't have a constitution protecting their rights or a Bill of Rights guaranteeing them certain rights, right? In those kinds of places, the controllers came down much, much harder. And the COVID restrictions lasted much, much longer. So they locked them down more heavily. They made them mask up, vaccine, all the other stuff that they made some people in the United States do. These people were forced to do it, and it destroyed their economies. So in that way, you could say they are economic refugees, and that would be more true because, their economies have been destroyed. I would argue intentionally by a globalist design, probably crafted by the UN and the WHO and the WEF and all these people, and Biden, Build Back Better, all that garbage. So anyway, moving on. The point is that that's what his excuse is, why we have to leave the red carpet rolled out and have the gates welded open is so people can come in here because they're actually refugees. It's complete BS. It's all part of the UN. What do they call it? I'm drawing a blank right now, but they had a program. The UN had a program where basically they were going to, what is that? Replacement migration. That's what they called it. I knew it would come to me. Look into that. Go look into UN replacement migration. I can't talk about it much here or else my video will be taken down. Let's see here. 2000, they predicted snowfalls are now a thing of the past. Well, I remember snow last year, and that's kind of weird. And the year before that, and year before that, and every summer they claim that, it's the hottest summer ever on record. When it's complete BS, man. If you look at the records, it clearly says it's not the hottest summer. But these people will echo that over and over enough in the echo chamber, and then they all start believing it. And then they start acting out because they believe that there are people out there that are evil that are just trying to, climate deniers, they call them, or call us, climate deniers. It reminds me, they always have some name, like when Obama was being questioned about his birth certificate, it was birthers, or, the Tea Party came along and then it was teabaggers, and then, science deniers during COVID, do you remember? I mean, it's over and over and over. That's one of the ways you can tell if you're on the side of the right, of the truth, is that you're being accused and labeled certain things by entire groups of people and media as well. So, in 1989, the UN warns that the entire nations wiped off the face of the earth by 2000 from global warming. I don't think that happened. Last one here. In 2011, the Washington Post predicted cherry blossoms blooming in winter because it was going to be so warm then. But just like communism, somehow this time it's going to be different, right? That's what they always say about failed communist policies. Well, this time it'll be different. We'll do it different because we'll be in control, see? And we're good. And maybe some of them start out good, but they're never good in the long run. It's just unbelievable that this eco-doom and eco-disaster is allowed to permeate unchecked throughout our society. And worse than that is that they'll say things like the science is settled. Well, that is the most unscientific thing you could ever say, because as we all know, as we learn more and more things and discover newer, elements and things like this, right? Newer ways of doing things. New technology comes along, like the, what do they call it? The Hadron Collider or whatever. They can figure out new things, new ways that, to create a black hole or whatever that'll consume the whole earth or whatever, right? There's just lots of different things that we're learning along the way. And as that new information comes out, sometimes it changes the old science. So to say that the science is settled is the most unscientific thing you could possibly say. It's just unbelievable. The science is never settled because new information may come out a decade from now that disproves or slightly alters your perception of what the science currently is. And so guys, when people are telling you these things, when they're saying things like I am the science, you need to look out. That person is at very least a liar. And they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal to continue to push their agenda, whatever that agenda may be. Right? So this applies to everything, not just global warming and it being one of the biggest lies that's ever been perpetuated on mankind. And for whatever reason, you can go talk to younger people about this that have been conditioned into the global warming cult, and they will deny all of this stuff. They'll say it doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. What matters is I can see it with my own eyes. They think that anecdotal evidence of being able to see with their own eyes or feeling that this summer is hotter than last summer has some sort of scientific credibility or gives credence to the argument of man-made climate change, man-made global warming. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't be, regulating ourselves against going and pouring oil in the oceans and stuff like this, right? I mean, yes, obviously we shouldn't be putting trash in the oceans. We should be figuring out things, instead of just putting trash in a landfill, let's figure out how to either turn our trash into something productive like nitrogen or not nitrogen, what is it called? Methane. I've seen lots of these dumps, where you see the big landfill and they'll have methane out there and it's just burning out in the air. I wonder, could they use that, or do they use that methane to power some of the facilities on the property? I mean, that would be a great way to use what you're producing instead of just burning it up into the atmosphere. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but we can't even figure out, like the intro scene to Idiocracy. I mean, it's 2023. And we're worried about global warming, man-made climate change, these things that are not even real, when we could be worried and focused on things that are real, like trash in the oceans. I saw a thing the other day. It was a meme. This guy was holding up all these things like a big fishing stringer, and it was all the masks that he'd been pulling out of the ocean and stuff. So, they banned plastic straws, but now all the masks are floating around out there getting tangled up in a turtle's fin or whatever, right? I mean, so it's a catastrophe, and we need to be teaching people not to be litter bugs, not to be dumping on private lands or public lands or any of that sort of stuff, and to be responsible stewards of the earth, right? And be good. But see, they don't want that. They don't actually want that. They want control. They don't want a good, clean, clean water, clean earth, clean air, that sort of stuff. That is not what any of their stuff is about. Their push for EVs is a push to control you and monitor you and be able to shut you off when you do something that they don't like online or whatever. or in real life or at your job or whatever. They want to have that control to hit a kill switch and shut you down. All the way around. Your home appliances, your air conditioner, all this stuff is now smart. And look out for that. You know, I had a hell of a time when my last TV went out, my television set went out. The black lights or whatever, or the LED lights went bad and it was still working, but I couldn't see the picture, right? So I was like, okay, I got to buy a new TV. And it took me probably 3 or 4 weeks to find a good enough deal on a suitable size television set to replace my old one that wasn't smart. Every TV now is smart. It's loaded up with all this stuff that, you know, I mean, some people claim there's a single pixel or an LED somewhere in there that could be used as a camera, and they're looking at what you're doing in your house, or they could, right? Maybe they're not, but they could turn that camera on and see what you got going on in your house. I mean, that is Orwell's 1984 on steroids, and people voluntarily go out and buy this stuff and bring it into their homes. It makes no sense to me. Alexa and, you know, all the other ones, right? These monitoring devices that are stealing your liberty away. And most people have no idea. They think, oh, this is so convenient. This is so great. And the way that, you know, just on the outro here, the way that search engines have displayed their liberal politics and their democratic beliefs, their communist beliefs, by suppressing truth and promoting their climate lies. If you don't believe me, go type in something like climate change lies on Google and see what comes up. You'll probably get a page or two worth of pro MSM viewpoints that are all talking about how man-made global warming is the worst thing that's ever happened in the entire world, in the history of the world, before you're going to find any real truth about the climate change lies that are going on that are obviously apparent to people with eyes to see and ears to hear. So anyway, guys, video's getting a little long, so I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. Oh, by the way, let me know what you think about all this stuff. I'm sure I left some out. Do you remember another prediction that the scientists made along the way that later on turned out to not be true? Let us know down in the comments. I always love reading them. And until then, we'll see you next time.